club and like with the air gun and shooting at rats? There's a mic.
There's one person that I do not know how to get a hold of, and he was only there briefly, but remember Buster?
I remember the name, but who was that exactly?
He was like, so basically when I started doing more bartending and more DJing, he kind of came in and started doing the kitchen in my shoes. Long black hair, really into like Scratch Acid and Butthole Surfers and noise bands and Sonic Youth and stuff like that. And little skater kid. And he ended up getting sent to jail, to Lorton Penitentiary, because he smashed a department store window with a skateboard and then spit on a cop, which was considered assault of a federal police officer. So at the age of, I think he was 17, he was really young. I mean, we used to give him beers like, you're a kid, he ended up doing like 5 years in Lorton.
Ouch.
Like maximum security penitentiary with hardened rapists and murderers. I mean, it's like this, pretty young boy like sent off to jail with these fucking, hatchet murderers and shit. What the fuck? And I never heard anyone, in the whole circle that I stay in touch with, whatever happened to Buster? Oh, yeah, what happened? So, I always wondered because he was there.
So never saw him after that.
Not really.
Yeah.
A bunch of us, Fluffy and Bob and I, went down to visit him in jail one time, but it was like, none of us had cars, so it was a big ordeal getting out to Lorton, to go out and visit someone. Well, that was fucked. That was right about the same time everyone started doing smack.
Oh, Jesus. Not me.
Everybody. It was like, not everybody, but it was pretty out of control for a while. And it was just like this private club. If you weren't in, you were out. And just like,
were you in or out?
I was out. I lost a lot of friends as a result.
Yeah.
I lost contact with people, and it sucked because it was like one of those things where people were managing to keep it together for a while. Bob was one of the first people that really lost his shit on it, and it became obvious it was a problem, and we had to actually do like an intervention. Like basically, everyone got together and said, "Look, we're gonna can you if you don't get your shit together." And so he kind of forced himself to get his shit together, at least on round one for a couple of years. And I remember when I moved back to DC, and I moved to LA in '93, moved back after a year there. Because I couldn't afford to live in LA anymore. And I worked briefly at Dante's upon returning, and then at Kopi's, which was this Italian restaurant on New Street. And Bob had just come back from, I guess, living at his folks' house in Connecticut and was trying to get his shit together. And I ended up putting him on my couch when I was living up at 14th and T for about a month, and it just became obvious that he wasn't actually clean, and he was still getting high. He started bringing some weird dudes over, and some people were yelling up in my window because I lived on the second floor above this antique shop. And just weird shit. And then one day I come home after I'm going out. My friend Danielle was doing tattoos out of the apartment, and we came back. She had an appointment. We went out to lunch, came back. Come stumbling out of the bathroom, like pinned out eyes, like, hey man. And Bob was like, passed out on the couch, and I was like, okay, both of you, get the fuck out. And Bob was like, what? And I was like, look, I'll give you, in all fairness, I'll give you till tomorrow to get your shit out of here, but you got 24 hours to find another place to stay. You can't stay here anymore. So I need the key, and I didn't know I had cell phones back then. I was like, call me when you're ready. I'll have your shit, pack your shit up now. And he's like, fine. And he just started throwing shit out the window, just dragging it out, being real dramatic about it. And then next I heard, he was basically, he'd gone to New York to score, left for dead on the street in lower Manhattan, naked, robbed of everything, just had to go into the psych ward in the hospital. Because they know, here's this naked dude laying on the street. What are we gonna do? You just don't take someone generally to jail like that. No identification, nothing like that. And I guess when they finally, found out who he was, and he went and stayed with his parents for a while up in Connecticut, and that's about the same time I moved to Seattle. I got a thank you note from him. Like when I finally relocated, I got a postcard from him thanking me for kicking him out, because if I hadn't done that, he never would have got clean and sober. And at that time, I was able to stay in touch with Laura Dove and Kenny Inouye. Those are basically the only two people who really, we talk back and forth on the phone every now and then when I moved here. And then eventually, everyone just went to email, and I lost touch with everybody. Phone numbers changed, and there's no directory for cell phones or email. No MySpace back then. No way to figure out who was where. And
How did you get your job at 930? How'd you get in there?
I just started going. I would go to shows constantly. Like starting in about '85 is when I got my first car. So getting in to see shows in 930 and DC Space, and go to Hung Jury Pub, Wilson Center, and stuff like that. I could finally go see shows because Metro closed at midnight. So half the time I couldn't go out to see a.
So where were you living?
Way out in Virginia,
Okay.
in Alexandria. Which in the big picture isn't that far, but the metro system is like, you're talking like a 3-hour trip.
Right.
So, once I got a car and I was able to go, there's all these bands, like, every fucking night pretty much there was a band I wanted to see. And I had been working at Waxy Maxi's Records out in Springfield, and I would get free passes to go see shows all the time at 930 Club as well. So, between, half the time I would pay for it, half the time I'd get a comp ticket. And I used to sell acid and weed. And like, oh, I saw, he would give me sheets of acid to front when he found out that we were total, psychedelic heads. And that, so we had a better price from him, the guys we got it out for in Virginia, for like $100 a sheet. We could sell hits for like $3 and still make money and have enough for ourselves. So it kind of developed into that, and then they just kind of listened to shows, and it was funny because I remember like one of the first times I ever went down there, I got busted by Art and kicked out for holding a friend's beer while he was going to the bathroom.
Right.
I wasn't even drinking it.
Yeah, that's what you told him, I'm sure.
I was driving too. I was like, 16 years old.
But that's exactly the same shit we didn't believe.
I did the same.
Like, oh, okay, now I'm a doorman. Oh yeah, right. You're just holding it, kid. Yeah, yeah, right. Then you take him in the office, and Jared perches up on the bar stool like a fucking vulture.
Yep.
And gives them the very.
I was just going to say.
It was a reasonable lecture. I mean, he was quite reasonable about it. He said, you're just hurting yourself. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but.
Yeah.
You just don't you like coming here? Don't you like having a club where you can come underage and see great bands and stuff? And why guilt tripping them basically? Like, why are you trying to screw this up?
I actually became really good friends with the guy that I did the same thing to later.
Yeah, right.
It was funny. We ended up playing music together. It was good.